I'm Mill Hurley, and welcome in the gardens. You know, it's summertime and it's time to get to work. If you've been putting it off because you think, Lord have mercy, there are too many weeds and too much to do and it's too hot. Come on out with me early in the garden and let's get to work. It won't be so bad. Get your tools, let's go. First thing you gotta do, deadheading. When you deadhead flowers, you are encouraging the plant to continue to flower for you, or in some cases, like with daylilies that only flower one day, you might be deadheading to just make the plant look neater. These are Coreopsis. Coreopsis is this variety, blooms a lot, and if I deadhead, I'm doing it more for it to look neater. So how do you deadhead? You find the flower that's finished. Usually there's a little seed head on it. I suggest you follow that stalk down to where it meets maybe other flowers and take that off. To me, that is a cleaner look when you take off the flower head. I have seen people cut off the flower head and leave the stalk. I don't like that look. So find the flower, go down the stalk, the stem, and cut it out. And some of you might be like, oh, I don't know, is that a flower to coming on or is that a finished flower? That's the finished flower, and here is the flower, the next flower coming. Can you see the difference? Staking. Stand up straight, as your mother would say. Get your stakes in the ground early. Even if the little plants are low and they're gonna grow up to this height and the stake's already sitting there waiting, you've done it so that it'll stand up straight. It's nice to have stakes of different lengths because if you've got something tall like this Coreopsis here, you want a stake that might, see there's one in here? You didn't even know it, did you? You can use bamboo stakes and use some string or tape to support it. This stake is great because the arms adjust so it can wrap around the plant. I think I'll use this one because it's a skinnier stake. Now, this Coreopsis will sit here, but do you see what I'm saying about it's growing kind of that way because it's been growing like that? I know you don't want to hear this, but it's helpful to weed your garden in the summertime. If you allow the weeds to flower and set their seed, you can have millions, thousands, millions. One of the tools I love to use when we have a lot of weeding to do in big spaces is using my D-ring. Does that look like a D to you so you'll remember? You can take the D-ring in this direction. You can pull and cut off the weed, and you can also push and it'll cut the weed. And the key is you want to push down into the bed to cut that weed, and it cuts it off at the root. Another trick with helpful weeding, you water the garden the day before. When the garden soil is moist, it's so much easier to get weeds out. When you got to get down on your hands and knees to weed, nothing like a digger. I like this digger because of its pointed end. It's very solid. Some people call it a Hori, H-O-R-E-I, Hori knife. And I can get underneath these weeds and leave the soil as much as I can. Good old clover, other things, chickweed. Every season there are different weeds. Have you noticed that in your garden? I know it's in mine. This is Nefeta, N-E-T-E-T-A, or catmint. It blooms late spring, early summer, usually in mid-June for us in Michigan. This is a plant I love. The bees love it, but I like to deadhead it or give it a hard prune and a haircut. You see how it's kind of opening up? See, you can kind of see the middle of the plant. Well, one way to work around when a plant sprawls open, if it's in enough sun, is to give it a haircut. And this time of year, right before we get into the middle of summer, it will flush back out and it will bloom again. But like I said, the bees are loving these flowers and it just breaks my heart to cut it, so I might not cut all of them. Just cut this one, leave the other one. Have you thought about growing vegetables? Have you thought about growing onions or garlic? They are so easy to grow here and they don't take up a lot of room, and you can put them in the front garden if that's where there's all the sun. You can mix them in with the flowers, with the bushes. There's no rule that says you can't. This past fall, I planted shallots. Onions are so easy to grow and they don't take a lot of room here in the front garden because this gets a lot of sun, and that's what you need when you're growing vegetables, at least 6 hours of sun. Well, I had a crop failure and I want you to know it, because even though I've been gardening all my life, you can still have crop failures, and I did. Now, what I think happened is they just dried up and died, because this is a dry garden. You plant them in the fall, and they were coming along, and I would come out and check them out. Well, then I didn't check them out the last couple of weeks. I knew you were coming, but I wasn't paying attention to them, and so yesterday I came out to kind of get ready for you. There were no shallots. So I'm bummed. But I'm going to try again, and that's what I want you to know. If you make a mistake or you have a crop failure, don't let that keep you from trying again. But I also grew garlic, and garlic is so easy to grow. I saved some of the cloves from the garlic that we had in the community garden, and you got to plant them in the fall. They need to grow in full sun in well-drained soil. It can't be clay because they'll rot over the course of the winter. So this is well-drained soil. And look at the garlic. It's not big. That's why I say you can grow your own garlic if you have all the right conditions. Ideally, you harvest the garlic here in Michigan around the 4th of July, early summer. I use a fork, a garden fork, because you hopefully aren't going to hit the bulb and break up the bulb. There's the garlic. See, it really doesn't take much space, does it? And these really aren't big heads like we get at the grocery store. And listen, if you decide you're going to grow garlic yourself, do it this fall, do not use a garlic clove that you buy at the grocery store unless it says it's organic. Because you want to be sure your seed, your garlic clove, doesn't have any chemicals in it. Now what you have to do is you have to let the garlic dry. And you want to hang it upside down to let the air circulation get to it in the garage. No air conditioning, no basement, that's too moist. You want it someplace like a garage. Let it dry for a couple of weeks, and then these green guys will turn brown, and once it's dried, You can cut them off, cut off the stalks, and you've got your own garlic. Yum, yum. The fun thing about gardening is trying new plants, and I have received over the years from Walter's Gardens lots of new perennials to try in my own garden. One that's fairly new this year is called Whoopsie-Daisy. It's a dwarf Shasta daisy. I love daisies, and this is fun to see how well it's blooming. It only is about 18 inches tall. Normally daisies are 36 inches tall. And I believe if I keep deadheading this daisy, it'll probably keep blooming for me. But this is a nice summer blooming perennial to try in your own garden, is a daisy. If you have at least 5 hours of sun. Daisies like at least 5 hours of sun. They like full sun. I have lots of different daylilies that I have been given over the years. So this is lovely, this kind of, I guess you'd call it maroon color. And here's one that's even darker in color and a bigger variety. You know, there's something like 90,000 styles of daylilies. But one of the styles of a daylily is its attributes is the frilliness on the edge of the petal. That's very interesting. So if you like daylilies, there's more to life than a Stella d'Oro daylily, which everybody knows and sees around town. So you might want to explore the many types of daylilies that you could have in your garden. And right back here on this side of the garden again is another wonderful hard blooming, long blooming, tough perennial that was given to me called Coreopsis. And the Coreopsis comes in many, many colors. It can be many heights. And it's a wonderful summer blooming, full sun perennial to try in the garden. The little bees and the pollinators certainly like it. I don't deadhead it as often as I could, maybe I should. It has a lot of flowers, that means you do a lot of deadheading to continue to encourage it to bloom. But Coreopsis might be something that you would like to try in the garden. And we have the gold colored Coreopsis there, and then this one next to it is more of a lemon color Coreopsis. So Coreopsis is a great summer blooming perennial to try in the gardens, and many, many varieties are out there now that are healthy and strong and do well. This little patch of flowers are cone flowers. Cone flowers are loved because of this head of the flower. As it ages, the seeds dry up, and the little goldfinches and the little tiny birds love to come and eat the seed off of the coneflower once the petals have dropped. Coneflowers now come in many, many colors, and it's fun to maybe expand your palette of coneflowers from the pinks to the whites. And down behind, again, another little coneflower that was sent to me a couple years ago. It's itty bitty. So if you have a little garden with a lot of sun, you might want to look into some of the dwarf coneflowers. Check out new perennials for the garden in the summer. You'll have lots to use. Summertime means hydrangeas, and don't we love our hydrangeas? There are 4 types of hydrangeas that do well for us in Michigan. The first that blooms are the Annabelle hydrangeas, actually Hydrangea arborescens, and in that family are the Annabelles, which bloom white, or as I have here, a newer variety of Hydrangea arborescens called Incrediball Blush. And And they bloom on what we call new wood. So you can cut it down every year and that will bloom again for you every year. And also blooming on new wood every year is the family of Hydrangea paniculata. The paniculatas bloom at the last of the season. This one's already started to put its flowers together, but it won't be blooming again for another month, which is great that you have late summer flower blooms. So you have the hydrangeas that start the season, the arborescens, they bloom on new wood, and then you have the hydrangeas that end the season, the paniculatas. They also bloom on new wood. Now, the other two classes of hydrangeas that bloom on old wood are, example, this is Hydrangea cercifolia. Now that cercifolia starts with a Q. This is known, the common name is oak leaf hydrangea. You can tell why it's called an oak leaf because the leaf is shaped like an oak leaf. Oak leaf hydrangeas start to bloom after the arborescens, the Annabelles do, so they bloom early in the summer. They get huge. Look at this one I'm letting grow. This is over 6 feet tall. But oak leaf hydrangeas bloom on old wood. That means that the oak leaf hydrangea produced its flower buds last fall and they were there this spring. So the time to prune a hydrangea that blooms on old wood is after it blooms. That means you're going to be pruning in August and then you don't touch it. I'm going in. And then Hydrangea macrophylla. Got one over here. This variety of Hydrangea macrophylla is a newer variety called Twist and Shout. So the flower is not quite as round a ball as a lot of you would recognize. It's more of a flat, almost a lace cap. The wonderful thing about Twist and Shout actually will bloom into October. This plant is still putting out little flower buds like this in October. But it really likes a lot of water. Of all the hydrangeas we've just talked about, to me, macrophyllas want a lot of water, and I'm kind of tired of having to come out here, give this shrub a couple of gallons of water nearly every day. It gets the afternoon sun, so if I were to put it in morning sun and afternoon shade, that would help. So you want low maintenance, you got to think about where you're putting your hydrangea, which hydrangea you're going to put in your garden, because you need to know when you're going to prune that hydrangea if it needs to be pruned. So many times we give ourselves more work than we have to. Why are you pruning your hydrangeas? The best thing you can do in your gardens is relax. Get in your hammock, get in your chair, whatever it takes. But get in your garden and enjoy all your hard work. And if you get in your gardens, you might even want to pick up the latest edition of Michigan Gardener. It's the best magazine going. But whatever you do, enjoy your gardens. This This is Mill Hurley. I'll see you next time in the gardens. You're going up to the sun?